night, Ravens-Chiefs on NBC from Kansas City. You can see that also on Peacock. Then on Friday, live from Brazil, Packers-Eagles only on Peacock. The men who will be calling all the action from Brazil, Noah Eagle and Todd Blackledge on the call. And that'll be Friday night, September 6th in Sao Paulo. And Peacock, the exclusive national home of the NFL's first ever regular season game in Brazil. Guys, thanks for joining us. Noah, let me start with you. It's interesting when you go to a certain campus or a city that you already know that city or that campus. This is different being in Brazil. So what is it you're trying to gather to then add color on Friday night?
Yeah, Dan, there's honestly only so much that I think we're trying to gather ahead of time. We've got a great crew, an extended crew that's here with Jack Collinsworth and Rodney Harrison and Tony Dungy. So they're doing a lot of the intel for us of getting around Sao Paulo, getting a feel for the environment. For us, too, we're really focused on the game and focused on the matchup and making sure we do justice by that. But very exciting for the NFL to be here. And there's a pretty big audience in South America, especially in Brazil. So we'll try to make sure we at least highlight that.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that, Todd. The growth of football around the world, they're trying to make it a global sport by having fan bases in certain countries. Has Brazil made their claim to the Eagles or Packers?
Well, I think some stuff that I've read, it seems like the Packers might be a little bit more of the favorite here, but I think that's kind of a national thing, international thing anyway. A real strong fan base, but it'll be fun. It'll be a fun game to be a part of, and they play some American football here. They have a couple organizations that play flag football, which is a huge initiative by the NFL right now, has made its way down here as well. And so it should be a very interesting crowd on Friday night.
What's the stadium like? We're talking about a soccer stadium?
Yeah, we haven't been there yet, but it is a soccer stadium. But we'll probably visit it tomorrow and kind of get a feel for it. I think the seating is going to be maybe 50,000. I don't think it's going to be any bigger than that. But the understanding is it's a beautiful place, great field, and so the players should like the surface they're playing on.
And as far as calling games outside of the country, Noah, you, of course, were at the Olympics, but degree of difficulty change at all because you're not in the United States?
Yeah, I think it's just you adjust to your environment. It's different wherever you go. I think my bigger issue, Dan, is I spent so long trying to perfect French that now that's all outside of English. So I walk up to everybody here saying bonjour and bonsoir, and they look at me like I have six heads. But it'll be different. It's a soccer stadium, so the configurations are going to be a little different of our booth. I got to do the Notre Dame game in Ireland last year, and that was the first time I ever called a football game literally outside, and it started to rain. So that was where now you're looking around and saying, do we have enough coverage? Are my charts going to be completely soaked? Can I read? But you figure it out and you just adapt as you go.
Todd, you got a better handle on how the Eagles are going to be this year or the Packers?
Well, it's interesting. I think both teams, they're obviously their seasons ended in different directions. Last year, they were completely trending in different directions. But I like what both teams did in the offseason. I think both have a chance to be really good this year. Philadelphia brought in new coordinators on both sides of the ball. Green Bay brought in a new defensive coordinator. I think you have two of the best quarterbacks in the National Football League. And I just think that, again, both teams added, kind of exchange running backs. So we get to see Saquon Barkley for the Eagles. I think he's excited about the change of scenery. I think that Josh Jacobs the same way with Green Bay. Both teams have outstanding receiving cores, good offensive lines. I think the Eagles have an elite offensive line, even without Jason Kelsey in the center since he retired. So I think we've got two outstanding offensive football teams and two defenses that are going to be breaking in new systems and new coordinators on Friday night.
I'll give this to both of you. I'll start with you, Noah. What kind of info are you trying to get? When you go to those production meetings and the coaches there and the quarterbacks there, how much can you push before you're pushing too hard to get something that you can share on Friday night?
Yeah, I think my philosophy has always been, we can all go and listen to what they're saying in press conferences. We can read what they've said in articles and whatnot. I want to try to find a couple things. One, I want to humanize the athlete. So can I get something that maybe is going to showcase who they are outside of football, outside of what they do in their sport? The second thing is I want to expand on what I've heard. So if they've said something publicly, I want to see if I can then take it another step forward. And then the third thing is you just want to find a way to get the mindset of the overall player. So whether that's going into the season as we have right now, what's their mindset overall on the season, whether that's the mindset of what's happened already over the course of a year, or even just something very much micro, but you want to find some mindset, something that then you can use. So that's kind of the three things that I'll try to toggle between. And it's a case by case thing because everybody reacts differently in these meetings. There are some guys that I think are open books, and there are other guys that maybe are a little bit more difficult to crack, let's say.
Yeah. Yeah, I think for me, one thing in talking to the coordinators from both teams, I mean, I'm going to try to pull some football stuff and some X and O stuff from them that I might be able to integrate. Again, with the first game, there's a lot of wait and see. And the thing about the NFL that is probably different than the college game is, I think in the NFL, they're very much about making adjustments, in-game adjustments, not just halftime adjustments, but in-game. And I think that is even more comes to light in a first game because there's a lot of unknowns still. And when I talked to the coordinators on both teams, it was kind of like, okay, trust our training, trust our rules, and then we'll make adjustments based on what we see that we don't know. Jeff Hafley was a defensive coordinator for the Packers. He was a head coach at BC. So they're going to have to see exactly what he's doing, and they'll make adjustments in the game. And then the other thing for me is I've been doing this such a long time that I kind of build off of relationships, relationships that I've made along the way. And we were on a call with Jalen Hurts yesterday, and it was kind of funny because I started asking him a question. He interrupted. He said, "Hey, Todd, wait a minute. You remember the first opening game you did of mine, don't you?" And I'm thinking back, and I said, "Oh, yeah, I do remember. Oklahoma against Houston. I think he threw 5 touchdown passes." He says, "Yep, that's right." So I like to play off of those relationships that I have and build off of that.
Okay, but Noah, does Todd go into the quarterback mode where he speaks a different language when he's around the offensive coordinator and then the quarterback, the YZ banana curl, blah, 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 blah?
Yeah. No, I haven't heard a Spider 2Y banana-esque from Todd Blackledge yet, but I know it's in there. I think when he talks to the coordinators, which he's done now our last couple games separately, I'm sure that's where a lot of that comes out, which is better for me because if I was sitting here and he starts bringing some of that stuff out, it would sound like the Portuguese again. And then I'd feel much more uncomfortable once again. But no, I like when Jalen Hurts gives him a little wink, wink. Thanks for being on my game. I feel comfortable again. That's the fun stuff for me.
You don't do that, do you, Todd? You don't go into the I used to play the game. Let me ask him. My check down used to be this.
Yeah. No, I don't do that. I mean, look, I love talking ball. I love, doing that. But at the same time, I know the audience that I'm speaking to also. I mean, I'm not going to do that on the air either. I want to say it in a way that everybody can understand. I always try to answer the question, why this play works, why didn't it work, why is the game going this way? But I want to say it in a way that anybody can understand and say, oh, wow, that's a good point. I didn't realize that.
Did Romo change anything for you when he started predicting? Like, do you think analysts, or did you feel like, wow, should I change? Do I have to do something different? Because Romo was, Nostradamus with some of these plays?
Honestly, and I'm not saying this, I'm not pulling, tooting my own horn, but I felt like I had done that before, not to the same degree, but I always try to look ahead. Yeah, I think there's a balance for an analyst of looking back, analyzing a replay, breaking down what just happened, but also being able to spin the game forward and what you anticipate and what you feel. And, part of your preparation and film study is to be able to do that. So I feel like I've always kind of had a good balance of that. He obviously, early in his career particularly, really took that to a new level. And I would expect Brady in his first year will be very similar because he's so closely removed from the game. I would expect him to be very, very similar here coming out of the gate.
And also with no huddle, everything's hurry up. You don't get that much time to really reset something. And I think it makes it harder on the play-by-play guy. I've said this about Jim Nantz. He's got to kind of grab whatever Tony says and leaves it out there in the ether, bring it back, call the play, and then Tony might jump in a little bit, and then Jim's got to bring it back. So the speed of the game, I think, has changed how we broadcast a game. Noah, you're not old enough to have, remember, your dad is, but to remember what it was like when you got to huddle up, where there was a little bit more freedom there to set up your analyst.
Yeah, that sounds like a different sport than
Yeah,
you referring to. Huddle? What is this? No. I mean, I know Todd said he didn't want to toot his own horn. I'll toot his horn for him. Todd, to me, and we've gotten a chance to work together now for a little over a year. You talk about space, you talk about understanding when each of us have to get in our roles. I haven't worked with many people better than this. I mean, this guy is so good at, one, economy of words and understanding what needs to be said and how to say it properly. But two, the point that he just made, he has the perfect blend of looking back and looking ahead. And so when you listen, the analysis that he has, and it's because of all the film that I watch him watch. I mean, last year we would spend time in our compound and I would just watch him comb through and he would say, hey, look at this tight end. I can't believe he did this over. And I'm like, dude, I'm not going to mention this on the air, but it's impressive that you're doing it. It makes my job a lot easier. It makes my life a lot smoother. And so I'm very appreciative of that. But he definitely does all of those things. And so I think, because NFL fans don't get to see him all the time, they'll get a real glimpse of that again on Friday.
What's interesting, though, Dan, is, we did 2 NFL games last year. And after doing 30 years of college football and, a whole season with Noah last year, the NFL game has a much more comfortable pace overall to call as broadcasters than the college game. There's a whole lot more urgency and speed up and hurry up in the college game, unless you're doing a Michigan game. They're one of the only teams that's still in college football at all. But the NFL, the normal pace of the game is much more comfortable from a broadcast perspective than the college game.
Noah, how often does your dad critique your work?
Critique my work, zero. Critique me in life all the time. Why would you wear that shirt all black on Dan Patrick? I guarantee that's going to be the next thing. No, I would say critique is the wrong word. I think that, we talk every day and we just talk about life and what's going on. And then every now and then, if one of us said something on the air that maybe I said something he liked, he'll say, oh, that was really good. And then there's other moments where he said, hey, you said it this way, think about doing it this way. But it's not overbearing. It's never been something where I'm like, he needs to stop talking. He also, I think, has allowed for me to really come to him and be the one to be the catalyst of some of those conversations. And I always want to continue to improve. That's been my real goal since I started doing this in college, is just every time get a little better. So I crave it, and I think he's there to provide it.
Have fun. We'll be watching. Thank you again, guys.
Yeah, appreciate it, Dan.
That's Todd Blackledge, Noah Eagle. They will be on the call. The game will be in Brazil coming up on Friday night exclusively on Peacock.